Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the clearest examples of a game that has aged very poorly within the series. I can imagine that once upon a time this game was groundbreaking, but in retrospect it really isn't. This game was very disappointing when I revisited it earlier this year with a group of friends, and it will go down as one of the worst mainline Sonic games in my opinion. But that's not the point of this video. The point is, how would I improve Sonic Adventure 2? Well, let's get started. Starting things off with the game's structure, I think this is one of the worst designed Sonic games on paper at least. You play through 30 stages, 16 in the hero story and 14 in the dark story, which is perfectly fine until you realise that the balancing of the speed stages compared to everything else in the game just wasn't handled very well. Sonic and Dr. Eggman are tied for having the most stages in the game at 6 respectively for each character, and Shadow and Rouge are tied with having the least amount of stages in the game, only having 4 each. So not only is there a shit ton of filler content in Sonic Adventure 2, because obviously most people will buy a Sonic game for fast-paced platforming, however, because of the game's structure, sometimes you will play between 2 and 5 stages with the other characters before you can experience Sonic and Shadow's gameplay, which are unanimously agreed upon as the highlights of the game. And this is pretty terrible, because as I said, the Sonic and Shadow levels are great, yet sometimes it feels like you're waiting forever before you can play them again when going through the campaigns. And I would tweak the game's structure to be more balanced for every character, make it so that there are 15 stages for both campaigns, so it is equal for both sides. Make it so that Sonic and Shadow have 8 stages, Tails and Eggman have 4 stages, and Knuckles and Rouge have 3 stages. And this would not only give us more of the levels with Sonic and Shadow that pretty much everyone enjoys, but it would also make it so that you would never have to wait that long to play a speed stage. This would make playing through the campaigns more enjoyable for me, however I'd go above and beyond by adding more hidden stages for beating the campaign. Green Hill Zone was nice in the base game, especially for Sonic's 10th anniversary, but maybe you could add one from Sonic 2 and one from Sonic 3, and make it so that every character can be playable in these levels. Without even touching the gameplay, we've already transformed Sonic Adventure 2 into a pretty damn good Sonic game in my opinion. But let's go above and beyond and tackle each element of the gameplay specifically, starting with Sonic and Shadow. As we went over earlier, we now have 8 stages for both Sonic and Shadow, which makes sense because Shadow is one of the most badass characters in the series, so giving him more screen time is an automatic win. The first thing I'd do is make the levels less linear, since a lot of the time it felt like you were moving in one direction with little opportunities for exploration. And whilst that kind of gameplay might work for the boost formula, with the adventure formula I would take inspiration from Adventure 1 and even 06 in this regard, since I feel like those games balanced platforming and exploration as well as speed much better than Adventure 2 did. Taking inspiration from Project 06, in my opinion the peak of the adventure formula, I would introduce a homing attack reticle for enemies, power-ups and grind rails. This basically became a series staple Sonic and the Secret Rings onwards, and I think it would have worked wonders with Adventure 2. By aiming the left analog stick and with the press of a button, I would make it so that you can easily jump from rail to rail, since obviously giving more control over your character, especially in sections where you can fall to your death, is a pretty important thing in video games. In 2025, with the many different ports of the game, as well as emulation, I would introduce customizable control layouts. This was an issue I had with Adventure 2 in base, the fact that so many of the abilities were mapped to a single button. In this Adventure 2 remaster, I would make it so that every action is mapped to their own button, X for the spin dash, Y for the lightspeed dash, and B for the somersault, respectively. From here, I would give Shadow the bounce bracelet, because at the end of the day, it's an ability that gives you more height than your standard jump, which I feel like could be pretty important for a platformer. And I would also make the spin dash spammable like it was in Adventure 1, meaning that you're not wasting as much time charging up the ability. Finally, as a reward for A-ranking their stages, I would give Sonic and Shadow an upgrade to their moveset. An example being a spin dash for Sonic that not only lasts longer but is also faster, and the same could apply to his somersault ability. And for Shadow, for his lightspeed attack, or fuck, even his spin dash, you could add a chaos control ability which fits with his character. And this would make both hedgehogs feel distinct and unique from one another with appealing movesets, rather than Shadow just being an inferior clone to Sonic in the base game. But like I said earlier, I already already enjoy how Sonic and Shadow control in base Adventure 2, so giving them more stages and giving them a few quality of life improvements here and there is really all you need. It's mainly the other characters where core fundamental issues need to be addressed. Moving on to the mech shooting levels, I thought that these were worse than Gamma stages in Adventure 1 in every single way. They took too long to complete, I didn't like how the mechs themselves controlled, they just weren't very fun. Starting with Dr. Eggman, I would make the mech better to control in every way. Make it so that it's faster, it turns better, it has better handling, it has a higher jump height, you can hover for longer. Essentially take the physics from Eggman's cosmic wall level and apply it to every stage. In addition to improving the thing's mobility, you should also improve the machine's capabilities in combat, since this is a mech from Dr. fucking Eggman, yet we're expected to believe that all it has is a measly lock-on pea shooter. With the updated controls, you could take advantage of this and give Eggman's machine a variety of weapons. Use the X button for the lock-on launcher, the Y button for an up-close melee attack that has a pretty wide arc, and the B button for a force field that temporarily protects Eggman. Controlling the evil Doctor in Base Adventure 2 felt so lackluster due to how clunky the thing was and how limited the combat was, but by making it better in every single way, I feel like these levels could be enjoyable. As for Tails, you could basically just take every improvement that I suggested for Eggman and apply it to him, if you were to keep the mech for him. However, I say fuck the mech for Tails, we should give him his gameplay style from Adventure 1. You could honestly just copy and paste how he controls in the Chow Garden, since you control Tails out of his mech in the Chow Garden for some reason, and the same also applies to Eggman. Give him all of the same abilities he had in Adventure 1, however you should nerf the flight to make it accommodate the new level design in Adventure 2. All you would need to give him from there is maybe a lock-on rocket launcher to deal with multiple enemies at a time, and boom, I think you've turned Tails into one of the better characters in the game. By making him less overpowered than his Adventure 1 counterpart, but still making him control like a dream, run at a fast speed, and giving him new updated ranged attacks, I think he would be very enjoyable to control, and a very nice contrast to Dr. Eggman. As for the mech shooting stages themselves, aside from very cheap enemy placement, especially in the second half of the game, I really don't have an issue with these stages, and I think that the updated controls could genuinely make them pretty fun. Surprising absolutely no one, the treasure hunting stages were my least favourite in the game. Not only were they very repetitive and took up way too much screen time, but I also just don't think they were well designed. Getting the positives out of the way, aside from the camera being a little bit fucky at times, I actually think that Knuckles and Rouge control and handle really well, and I honestly would be okay keeping their movesets exactly the same. Their levels don't exactly have an abundance of enemies, and you can't really control them in other stages like you can in 06 and by extension Project 06, meaning that you honestly don't really need to do much with their controls, outside of maybe making them a bit more refined. Other than that, the ways that I would improve these stages are pretty much the things that you've heard on the internet for years now. I'd make it so that every Master Emerald piece shows up on the radar at all times, just like how it was in Adventure 1. I would add the option in the settings to use either the Adventure 1 hint system or the SA2 hint system to give players a choice to use the system they prefer. There's pros and cons to both systems. Casual players would prefer the SA1 hint system, and more experienced players would lean towards the SA2 one. At the end of the day, I think both systems are flawed in their own way, but it's ultimately up to personal preference, so why not give people the choice? From there, for Rouge's stage in Security Hall, I would remove the 5-minute time limit, because Eggman literally says set a timer for 15 fucking minutes. And from there I would make it so that the hints in Mad Space are actually fucking readable. By reducing the amount of treasure hunting stages in Adventure 2 and making them better than they've ever been, they could actually be a nice breath of fresh air and a nice breather between the speed stages to help break things up. In Adventure 2, I thought these stages were so bland and repetitive that they made me quit the game, but in this new remake of Adventure 2 that I am proposing, these stages could actually be pretty enjoyable, like they were in Adventure 1. From there, I would remove the racing levels from the campaign altogether, since they're complete filler, they're uneventful, they're mundane, they offer nothing of interest for Tails or Rouge, and I think it would have been pretty cool to see them expanded upon in the multiplayer. More on that later. When discussing the ranking system itself, I would definitely make some changes. Instead of making it so that only score matters, make it so that you get a time bonus for each main stage too. It makes no sense that in a game about going fast, how fast you complete the stage, well, for the main stages anyway, are completely irrelevant, as all that matters is score. Sonic 06's system would have been perfect in this game. Increase the amount of score needed for an A or S rank, but make it so that time also contributes to the rank. Destroying enemies, collecting rings, beating the stage in a quick time, they should all contribute to getting a high score. From there, I would add rewards for A ranking every stage, such as unlocking the multiplayer characters in normal speed stages, such as playing as Amy, Metal Sonic, Tikal, and Chaos Zero. And just like in Sonic Mania, these characters could have different gimmicks whilst being very similar to Sonic and Shadow. Amy and Tikal could have a double jump but lack the light speed attack, and Metal Sonic and Chaos could be invincible to bumping into enemies but make them generally slower than the other hedgehogs. You could also go above and beyond by making Super Sonic and Super Shadow playable in the stages exactly how they were in the Genesis games by 100%ing the game. This is a feature that was in the Sonic games as early as Sonic 2, and it makes no sense that they would omit such an iconic feature. When discussing the other side modes of Adventure 2, I think the Chow Garden you honestly could leave untouched, as it was pretty great and offered a nice change of pace from the base game. Hell, I even know some people who prefer the Chow Garden to the actual game, mostly the people who enjoy Pokemon. I'd also say that the multiplayer is in a good state already, and it's probably the best multiplayer in the entire series. Aside from improving the characters and making them all unique to one another by giving them changes to their movesets, I wouldn't go crazy with these side modes as they were perfectly fine in the base game. Moving on to boss fights, I feel like these would naturally be improved with the refined controls and developed movesets that each character has. However, I feel like some of the character battles would likely need to be reworked, since I feel like they were the lowest points of the game and they were not very satisfying to fight. The only boss fight that I would legitimately want to change is the final boss itself, as I think it was pretty lame compared to Perfect Chaos. In that boss, you were blazing across the flooded ruins of Station Square to destroy the God of Destruction. In Adventure 2, you're just awkwardly pressing buttons to try steer the Super Hedgehogs until you can get close enough to land an attack. Live and Learn 100% carried this fight, as without that song, this fight was pretty lackluster. It would have been much better if you had full control of Sonic and Shadow in this fight, kinda like how you did in Adventure 1, and even in sequels such as Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog. From there I would add toggles for the music, the voice lines, and the sound effects in all the modern ports, since that was a common complaint in the remasters of Sonic Adventure 2 that the sound effects were just way too loud and drowned out the voice lines as well as the music. And whilst this game came out almost 25 years ago, I won't be too harsh when discussing the graphics, but yes, a new coat of paint would be amazing. Kinda like the gameplay that you're seeing in the background now. But really, that's all I have to say about Sonic Adventure 2, because truthfully in its current state, it's just a game that doesn't intrigue me very much, as I think the game is fundamentally flawed from the ground up. I think the PC community has worked wonders with mod support for this game, and to give credit where credit's due, quite a lot of the mod support for not only the Steam version, but also new fan projects such as Sonic Adventure 2 Redux do fix a few of the issues that I have. In fact, I'd go on record saying that Sonic Adventure 2 Redux is currently the definitive version of this game. It looks drop dead gorgeous, you have a homing attack reticle, you have improved physics, and you even have tweaks to the level design, and overall the characters are way more fun in this than they ever were before. I was very reluctant to make this specific episode because I know that people hold this game very dearly to their hearts, and to many people this is the best Sonic game as well as their favourite, but for me at least it's nothing even close to that. My Sonic Adventure 2 video was very negative, and to an extent I regret making it so negative, but really my thoughts on the game haven't changed very much, and I will not be replaying the game, especially in its current state, ever again. There are simply way too many issues with the game to hold it back from being among the best games in the series for me. Regardless of whether you love or hate Adventure 2, I hope that you've enjoyed listening to my perspective on how I would change Sonic Adventure 2 for the better. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and let me know down below how you would consider improving Sonic Adventure 2. I'd encourage you to remain civil towards everyone, as at the end of the day we're all part of a community. Please don't be an asshole if someone has a different opinion to you. Likewise, if you're enjoying the series, I would encourage you to comment which Sonic game you would like to see me tackle next. I thank you all for watching, and as always, I will see you all in the next one.